improvement that it's such a good environment to listen to music that he actually at a, I would call it kind of an audio convention or expo maybe, where he could approach various audio system manufacturers. He went from one to the next, and none of them were, none of them bit for his idea, which was putting 5.1 channel surround in a car, and also just a really carefully tuned audio system. So after approaching numerous audio manufacturers, one of them was Panasonic, and that was the seed that grew into where we are today. Panasonic liked the idea, worked with him, and then approached Acura, and Acura also liked the idea, and that was how it ended up in that TL initially. That TL had, I believe it was 8 speakers, but the way that it had 5.1 channel surround was via DVD audio. And that is a format that was around for many years, but it has basically faded now because so much music is now either on maybe a memory stick, or there are so many streaming services that have really high quality audio. So before I go any further, I want to make sure I remember to remind that whether you're in one of our cars or any of our competitors, really, if they have a high-end audio system, I'd encourage you to feed the system the best source material you can. And so that could be something like Pandora. The default setting is good quality, but if you go into the settings, you can bump it up to high quality, and I think you'll appreciate the difference in something like one of the Acuras or a competitor. But with that, why don't we go ahead to the next slide. The latest iteration of ELS audio is ELS Studio 3D, and that debuted on the 2019 RDX. That was in mid-2018. And we included this image because it shows one of the most noteworthy features of that. It was the first vehicle we had with basically in the ceiling 4 very slim drivers. They're called highline drivers, but those elevate the soundstage up above the passengers and really create an immersive audio experience. And so here is a slide that just gives a quick backgrounder. It mentions Elliot Shiner, 8-time Grammy-winning producer. And why don't we go ahead to the next? So this is Elliot and his son in the passenger seat there. They work together nowadays on tuning these systems. And one thing I'll just offer now while we have these kind of visuals here is a great thing about a car environment is you know exactly where the drivers are going to be. And during development, you have some say as to either moving them or perhaps angling them differently. And you can tune them to take advantage of knowing exactly where each of the passengers will be. So the systems, in my opinion, especially our ELS systems, have gotten so good that they rival what most people would have at home, like with a hi-fi system. Because if you buy really good audio equipment at home, good speakers, where you place them in the room and what they ricochet off of, all the materials in the room that kind of deaden sound and so on, those are all variables that can diminish sound quality, let's say, or diminish what's called imaging, which creates very natural sound. In a car, those are all known quantities. So I think next.
Yep, and then here I'll just add, I think you touched on it in a bit, but when Elliot first came to us with this idea, John Akeda's kind of spoken to this, where he said, you know, the combination or the union, if you will, of music and driving are so powerful. Like, I think for me personally, one of my favorite things to do is to get in a car and drive a longer distance and just listen to my music like at full blast and sing along. Like I did it a few weeks ago, and it's like really
preach.
Yeah, it's just like really good therapy to get out on an open road and just listen to all your favorite music. So I think that's kind of why this system and working with someone like Elliot really helps bring that to life and make it even that much better.
Hit the repeat button over and over so you can hear the song over and over.
Especially with the good songs, for sure. This slide just shows the progression of TLX models from left to right of what is in the system in the regular TLX And then in the middle, when you move up to the tech package, it will include 2 Highline speakers. You can see one over the driver, one over the passenger, the thin little stripe of a speaker. And then you can see the layout of the remaining speakers. That's a 13 speaker system. And then to the far right, in its standard on A-Spec and advanced models for now, and the Type S when it goes on sale, that is the top tier ELS Studio 3D. And while I have this slide up, I think you'll see with most of our competitors, most luxury competitors, that when you get into this high end of a system, it's not uncommon at all for it to cost several $1,000s extra. And I think a lot of customers, they may pause if they have the option of either ticking that box or not. But in the case of Acura, when you get into one of our trim levels, it's just standard. And so then it's a matter of just having your favorite music, and as I like to frequently remind, good source material, something other than XM. I don't mean to badmouth XM, but for music, it is compressed quite a bit and it will have a thinner sound.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Yes.
The standard sound system is not designed by this famous producer, just the one that says ELS?
So the 2 on the right, ELS, absolutely are tuned by Elliott. But actually, when Karina and I were going through this presentation, we wondered aloud whether the one on the far left, the 10 speaker system, is in fact tuned by. So I can track that down, or we can, and get an answer back to you for sure.
It's really not a lot of difference between that and the one in the middle. It's just, well, no.
Have you been able to hear the one in the
I've been able
speaker?
to hear the one on the far right with the Studio 3D, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Agreed. And I know Elliot, he was at our event for the RDX, and he was of the strong opinion that the one in the middle, the technology package, even though it has fewer speakers, it is not a big step down. He was very proud of that one as well. The tech package, he thought that whether it be the tuning and so on, that it really was a good sounding system too. So those who are in the tech rather than moving up to the A-Spec or Advanced should not feel shortchanged.
And Chris, all the components across the board are Panasonic?
Yes, as far as like the drivers and the amplifiers, yes.
Okay, thank you.
For the consumer, what is the difference in terms of price for those systems?
So the system is baked into the trim level. And so it would be the cost of moving from the tech package up to A-Spec or up to Advance. Off the top of my head, I would only be able to say that it's generally several $1,000s for each increment, and they build upon one another. But if it's whether it's TLX or RDX or MDX, we can definitely provide, kind of the pricing grid for each of those models, where you'd be able to see what that incremental price is.
Hey, this presentation is pretty nice. So can you share a copy of this presentation?
Yes. Yep, we absolutely will afterwards.
Wonderful.
So Karina, if nothing to add, we can go to the next one.
Armando, I think a way to think of it is that it's not adding some, when you move from one to the other, you're not just adding the ELS, the audio system, you're adding other features as well. And so we can get you a list of what that entails.
Yeah, sorry, I think I didn't make that very clear, that each trim increment upward is more and more content, not just audio system upgrade.
No, of course, thank you.
You should not get any Acura that is not A-Spec, in my opinion.
What did you say? That the only way to get an Acura is A-Spec?
It's an A-Spec, yeah. Don't even consider the others. It has to be the A-Spec. It's wonderful.
I think there's a compelling case to be made for that. So I think we'll skip by this slide. It's kind of word heavy, and it's just a good reference later on, but talks about the system. But on the next one, we'll be able to delve more into the TLX, which went on sale this fall. So you can see the latest iteration in the TLX. It is very similar to the RDX system, but it
Okay.
actually has an additional driver or woofer basically. And that's because in the rear package shelf, there are 2 woofers rather than just 1. And that's a significant deal that we'll talk about in a moment. But you can see the Highline speaker, we actually, I would say, cleaned it up or just kind of made it look even better for integrating it into the car, because it's actually integrated into the grab handle for the front passengers. So it just makes for kind of a cleaner appearance. That's a good location for that speaker anyway.
That's
And
badass.
yeah, it just blends right in, right? And I don't want to forget this, but also beyond elevating the soundstage, when all of these Highline speakers are being used for music, when the driver accepts a call or places a call, that Highline speaker above the driver becomes the primary speaker for that phone call. So it allows for the remaining passengers not to have such loud audio of the phone call, and allows the driver to hear that much more clearly.
How did they manage to not, the handle itself, not to compromise the sound waves?
I think that's just what the tuning, that the development of that handle and the driver, that they were able to work with the engineers to make sure that it was an integrated unit.